This episode is brought to you by Tanmay Shah. That's me. Best way to support this show is by sharing this with your friends and dropping a comment and review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You can become my patron and a sponsor. That's not all. You can buy Rocklaz merchandise and NFTs and much more. See all the links in description for details.
Rocklaz Radio.
Rocklaz.
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 Rocklaz Radio with Tanmay Shah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Rocklaz Radio. On the show today, we have with us MoCA, which is more modern than Museum of Modern Arts. On Rocklaz, previously you have witnessed and heard Belvedere of Austria, one of the oldest museums in the world. On today's show, we bring MoCA, which is one of the most futuristic museums. So let's find out and talk to them about what they are up to. Joining us is Colborn Bell, founder and director of MoCA, Museum of Crypto Art. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
So starting off, how would you explain MoCA, Museum of Crypto Arts, to somebody who's never heard about it before?
Yeah, it's a bit difficult, but let's see what I can do. You know, as you say, the Museum of Crypto Art is, in a sense, probably, if not the most futuristic museum in the world. And when you generally think of the word museum, you know, you think of history, you think of preservation. We do have for sure an element of that. We have a permanent collection of 350 works. We do a lot of exhibitions, generally in digital spaces, but also in physical spaces. You know, we've shown all over the world, from Los Angeles, New York, Miami, London, Paris, Turkey, China. We've shown in India, you know, and on and on and on. But I think of us more as a experimental think tank for really just the intersection of art and technology. So how are creative people using blockchain? How are creative people using augmented reality, virtual reality, AI, machine learning? And what is the confluence of this space? And how do we collectively begin to explore what it means to transition into these new realities? The implications of such, more of the human questions around doing this type of activity.
Mm-hmm. The world has so many museums. So
Yes.
why?
I mean, you know, it was meant to be, it's a bit tongue in cheek, right? Because, you know, what I noticed when I entered the space is that there were no institutions, right? And there was a marketplace and there were artists. But if there is no third party kind of talking about the story, kind of validating, you know, what's going on, well, then it doesn't really go anywhere. And kind of the first step in that, in making that history concrete and making that history valuable to people, is to establish a museum. But it was really meant to be tongue in cheek and more playful, even, you know, when how many MoCAs are there, right? There's 10 other museum of contemporary arts all around the world, right? So this was going back to kind of crypto's spirit of playfulness, crypto's spirit of rebellion, you know, doing a bit of a like copy paste, but doing it in a, you know, lighthearted, tongue-in-cheek, satirical manner, in which got people kind of thinking in different ways. And I think that has always been kind of the power of crypto. And for me, that was the power of crypto artists.
So in short, you explained what inspired you and what sort of problem MoCA is solving. So how was the journey when you started in 2020, I believe?
Yeah, you know, I was asked in February of 2020 to look at Super Rare. and I just kind of fell in love with what I was seeing. I had been familiar with NFTs since 2017 and kind of understood the architecture, but there was a valid artistic statement, and I think a collective movement that was occurring at the time that I knew I wanted to be a part of. So the museum was founded in April of 2020. 2 months later, I think by then I had probably collected 100 pieces of art, and was really just enjoying getting to know all of the unique characters, the different types of artists, having these direct conversations, what motivated them, why they were doing it. And I saw something that was just inherently valuable. And, as things grew and expanded, MoCA always became, kind of this place where those early artists knew that I think initial philosophies of that time were embodied and kept in kind of this community spirit, a very artist forward and kind of progressive institution that kept to the values when the market was going crazy.
Interesting. You said you invited to look at Super Air. So what has been your background? What did you do before
Sure.
2020?
I studied in New York City, economics and psychology. The first job out of school I did was investment banking. I did that for all of 6 months before I just couldn't take it anymore. And I was offered a position with United Nations Capital Development Fund, building an infrastructure bank in East Africa. Did that for 2.5 years. Wanted to go back into the private sector, so I had joined a wealth management firm founded by vegan Buddhists. That was all, how do you begin to kind of value align your money? Saw kind of the limits of what that looked like, and was offered to run the U.S. family office for a foreign family in which we were doing more angel and venture investing in green energy and agriculture, and looking over some of their various businesses and assets. And it was during that time that I was introduced first to Ethereum, and kind of had the right background to I think understand it quickly and be able to participate. I was really intrigued by what it meant for capital to begin to move more freely, and for people like myself to be able to kind of take that first initial investments into these types of corporations. These were opportunities that were previously really just reserved for the wealthiest of people. And here I was from home, being able to participate as an angel in all of these ideas. So for me, that was really interesting. That was really disruptive. And it was powerful, as far as capital formation alongside community formation and aligning incentives from very early on. So I did that in parallel with that position. Yeah.
You came in from the finance and investment side. What is art for you?
I I recognize that I think we exist in a increasingly kind of cold and capitalist world, and I think art is almost like the last bastion of free speech and free expression, where people can make powerful statements and not be attacked for it, because art is sanctimonious. It holds this special place in society that allows people to be more free thinking and creative, and I think this world desperately needs that. I think it needs more people thinking creatively, offering new solutions, awakening to new possibilities. I think there is a lot of conforming and not so much striving to to make substantive change, and I want to see substantive change. And I think it's really the art that provides both like the mirror and the door for people to move their minds in the way they think about things.
You're in New York. It's one of the cultural capitals of the world. Growing up, what impressions of art did you have? Did you go to museums or
Yeah,
visit some
I
graffiti?
I grew up in Los Angeles. My mother was a ballet teacher,
Oh,
so certainly dance was prevalent in the family. I went to numerous dance recitals. I do, we did a little bit of travel. So, I wouldn't say, but it was probably really when I got to New York. Um, and, I went to Columbia, and they have the, I think, most rigorous, what they call core curriculums, which is kind of a study of the evolution of Western thinking and humanities. And that was when I really began to appreciate more like arts and culture. And, California is such a new history, but once you are like in New York, and I was traveling to Europe, I got to just kind of experience so much more and understand, what these artifacts represent. And yeah, and I think that was the basis for so much of what is coming now.
hmm. What do you think art does for the society, for the world?
Um, I think it just lets people be more of themselves, right? I think it is, is an outpouring of unspoken expression that points to the places where collectively we are going. I think artists are given the freedom to kind of explore the abyss of the unknown and report back. And I think now, especially in times of exponential technological change, in which so much of the human experience is shifting, it really depends on the artist to go explore, to tell about the implications of what they're seeing, and to kind of communicate it in ways that other people can understand.
Hmm.
you know
Interesting take.
otherwise, who else is leading? Well, it's the corporations, right? And they have a much different agenda as to what they are trying to produce and to sell and to capture, um, with their products, and kind of with people being treated as consumers, but also products, right? There's an inherent humanness to, I think, the artistic experience that these corporations will never be able to capture and communicate.
From the corporate life and your extracurriculars in the college and your visit to Europe, how did you think of like becoming a museum, like preserving the history? What got that switch?
um I think the genesis of the idea was, um first going into these metaverse worlds and seeing nothing but green grass and blue sky, right? And believing that we were kind of moving into spatial web, but that it was, at this time, undeveloped. So, me, if I could plant kind of a stake in the ground or a flag in the ground, the idea was to say that these are spaces for independence. Like, we reject the hyper commercialization of these spaces, and we want them to be art forward and designed by the artists. So, that was really the initial goal of the museum, to begin to present beautiful art in these spaces, and to begin to offer artists land where they could develop and explore, um, showcase their work, showcase kind of art as architecture, um, and really explore the beauty of what it means to create unbounded by like the physical constraints of gravity. And I think all of that was, a major step forward in how art is expressed, is produced, and is an indicator of how the generations to come will be having art experiences.
Art to experience. We have a set of questions related to metaverse, but before that, on your website you have mentioned two questions. What is art and who decides? So who we have talked what is art? Well, who decides? Why this question?
Yeah, I mean, I think our museum is an inversion of the traditional power structure of a physical museum, right? These are very hierarchical in which decisions are made top down about which artists are the best, which artists get displayed, what solo shows they want to be doing in a year's time. And, that programming. The beauty of the digital is the responsiveness that we have and the tools that we can build to aggregate like the opinion of people in real time. So whereas a museum might need 6 months, a year longer to kind of plan a solo exhibition, well, I can produce an online digital exhibition in a week's time. And and that's being very generous. I could do it in a day if I spent the whole day doing it. So how we are responsive to culture, how we get at broader truths, how we eliminate individual biases, speaks to a new way in which people will be curating the art that speaks to them and curating the cultural moments that speak to them, instead of the broadly 90% like Western white male canon that exists historically across these museums. So it's speaking to the idea that there is broader creative expression that is worthy of being held in these places called museums, and being preserved and talked about.
It takes a week for curation in the crypto space. So how is your process for curation?
Well, we've developed a kind of a full curatorial set of tools. My idea is to effectively make myself as a curator redundant. So, we give people the ability to add any artwork to a community collection, right? We build these 3D architectures in which people can move artwork into installations and then go deploy them in any metaverse of their choosing. We have the ability for people to collaborate together and build shows together in these architectures. So, for me, it's less, what I care about, and I really try to not have my own individual bias kind of seep into the curatorial practice of the museum. But when we are asked to curate shows, generally it's thematic. Generally, we try and represent what we think is either on the fringe of expression, or showcase those who we haven't showcased before. The core of our collection is the Genesis collection, which is the only basis for the single rule to be in that collection is that it's one work from one artist who minted prior to December 2020. So we believe that participation in the movement was really just the art itself before it became a market movement. So having like that aligned philosophy was so much of the power of what would come. So it's really not a judgment on perhaps the art itself, because I think for non-technical people who aren't creating with this tool set, it's oftentimes very difficult to discern what is quote unquote the best art.
Again, coming back to the question about who decides. So you said before the only rule for the Genesis was artists who have done before 2020.
Yep.
So what about artists after 2020, and how, or somebody who's listening to this live, how can they participate and be a part of it?
So the curation tools are open to anybody, right? That speaks to the movement being inclusive and accessible. So anybody can begin to add their work to our community collection. From there, anybody can go and put that artwork into these rooms. They can deploy them into Metaverse. They can say, you know, I've created this exhibition with the Museum of Crypto Arts toolkit. And for me, that's just as valid. So, you know, anybody has the ability to participate in the museum in a way that they might best see fit. The movement was always about kind of inclusion and access, and you know, hearing what others were interested in more than what we were interested in. So all of our curation tools are free to use. People can upload their own artworks into our community collection. From there, these artworks can be brought into what we call our MoCA rooms, which are these 3D architectural objects, and then they can be brought, you know, into a metaverse world of their choosing. So we have this very efficient pipeline in which anybody can upload their work, put it into a room, go put it in the metaverse, and invite people to see it in this way.
It's basically like Decentraland, where people can, or crypto voxels, where people can just build their worlds and show their artworks, isn't
Yep.
it?
Except we reduce the architectural elements, the needed time to kind of build something beautiful. We have a network of architects that build those objects, and in instances offer them as CCO. So all you really need to do, if your specialty is, you know, digital painting or digital drawing, and you have your NFT, is just upload that work, and you don't need to spend time in something that you might not have the expertise in, like the metaverse architecture.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Do you charge for this?
No,
It's open for all, anytime anybody wants to showcase.
that's correct. Yeah, and you can find all of the tools at app.museumofcryptoart.com.
Amazing. I'll put the links in the description. Check it out. Museums' role is also to promote artworks and have these shows and exhibitions for the footfall. So how do you do that, or how is it scheduled, or can you take us through that?
Yeah, you know, I would say more than 6 months ago, we hired a director of programming, Julian Brangold, who has been putting on incredible shows, mostly with artist collectives in the space. We did a very popular one with a group called Making It 24/7. I think, you know, more than the individuals, we like to focus on the groups that are doing this. I know we have, you know, an incredible exhibition upcoming with the Verse, and are doing a series of programming with a guest curator, Una. So, you know, it's regular programming. I know his desire is to transition into more artist built worlds, if that makes sense, as opposed to just the installation of the architecture with kind of the more traditional JPEG or MP4 on the wall. He wants to have more artist built experiences in which the art is part and parcel with the the experience of being in that world.
You know, you as you're speaking, it reminds me of this place in Ahmedabad in India. It's called Ahmedabad Ni Gufa. It's built by B.V. Doshi with this famous Indian painter. It is MF Hussain. I'm talking about MF Hussain and BB Doshi have built it. So it's the whole place is an experience because there are no straight beams or columns. Everything is sort of haywire,
Yeah.
and different domes are there on top of it. And the work of MF Hussain is on the walls. So
Yeah.
it's a real world experience of this, and it's a good idea from listening from you that engaging the artists themselves to build an experience around it. So can you walk us through the process of how that is done, or how do you take care of so many artists if they want to build all their individual worlds?
Yeah, we have been building recently more in Hyperfile, just because it is so collaborative and so easy to use. So, a wonderful example, would be there was a Colombian artist by the name of Stephanie Layton who does these 3D flowers and kind of gardens, and she had put something into on Cyber that I had experienced, and I said, like, look, I love your work, but when it is trapped in kind of like this white box rectangle, I don't feel that it's like as expressive and exploratory and powerful as it could be. So I asked, like, do you want, I can rent you one of these worlds to just go explore. And she did, and she created the most beautiful exhibition. I believe it's kind of hyperfi.io/flowers never die.
Let's have a look at it as you're sharing. You have an option to share screen if you're on it, and then
Yeah,
we all can
let's,
have a look at it together.
sure. Yeah, okay. Share, let's just share a window. Yeah, so here you are. This is, this work, The Kiss. Right. So this is kind of like what happens when the art is detached from the white traditional like rectangle.
So where is the artwork? Can you like tilt the screen up? So I see Kiss written on the wall. So
Yeah.
are we walking inside the work, which is the Kiss?
Yeah, we are walking inside the work, right? So all of these kind of 3D, flower installations she does by hand, right? And this one is animated so that these two kind of come together.
Wow.
Right.
Oh, though they become a figure and they're actually kissing. This is so cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it until the last moment when they kissed.
Yeah, it's and she sculpts all of these in VR and in 3D. So you can continue moving into these installations.
Wow.
Cemetery of Forgotten Dreams.
Beautiful. So all these, so there's an entry into the artwork which has the name on it, and then once you go through it, you're
Right.
seeing the work.
Exactly.
Wow.
So
Beautiful.
yeah.
How many people at once can be there and watch this?
Oh, I've had instances where there's about 30 people at least. I've never particularly pushed the limits there.
No, even like 30 people is also very good. Like it gives the actual museum or gallery experience. It's not like a one single player thing that you just go and see or watch around. So anything that better than that is a very good experience.
Yeah, I
And
mean
it's very
the beauty of it is that these installations and exhibitions, they exist asynchronously, so anybody at any point can jump into this and experience it on their own time and terms. And there is something very nice about having an opening where people gather and collectively kind of walk through these. But the fact that it just is always available to access is very, very cool.
it's very interesting that you showed us the case, because when we had Belvedere Museum, they are the owners of the Kiss, the original artwork, and
Oh, really? That's
they have
great.
actually made NFT of the Kiss, the original painting. They have
Yep.
made NFT of the Kiss, and that was available, and it's also still available. You can see the link to get. So it is such a synchronicity moment. So as we are comparing old and new and futuristic, and we both talk about the Kiss in both the scenarios. So yeah, that was the traditional 2D, and this is the Kiss in action in 3D and animation coming together.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I had pulled up your website, but as we're already doing this, it'll be wonderful if you can take us through the website and first
Sure.
take us to the rooms.
Yeah. I mean, we could even curate something now together if we wanted.
Oh, absolutely. That would be so cool.
Yeah. Let's go to screen and we can go to Museum of Crypto Art. Um, so, this is our DApp. We'll start in the DApp. This is the 340. Well, there's now probably closer to 370. We have to update this.
Can you just hold on? I wanted to comment on this piece because I really love it.
Sure.
The balloon piece.
This one.
It is so beautiful and such intellect used to create this simple
Yeah.
yet beautiful and amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. That is the very first mint from the artist Slime Sunday.
Wow.
So what you see in this is you see a broad representation of styles and a bit of kind of the wildness and the roughness that was the early days of crypto art. A couple months back we received the largest single donation to the museum. It was 70 works of art, mainly from African, Middle Eastern, East Asian artists from a wonderful friend, Daim Al Yad. All of these, you have the ability to kind of come into. Let me just make sure we're on Polygon. And I wonder why. Let's see. So, if you want, you can leave an on-chain like.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
On chain, like the comments and likes are on chain.
All
That
the
is
comments and
pretty
likes are
innovative.
on-chain, so we can say just stunning photograph, and that will it will live with the artwork forever.
Forever.
Yeah, which is I think
Amazing.
an interesting feature.
So, like small features like this make you really futuristic and very innovative.
Our
True.
developer team is world class, and the amount of passion that they've poured into this project is incredible. So then
Wow.
you go into the community collection and you can see 9,204 NFTs that have been added by. I wonder if you'll be able to see. Let me share this tab instead. We have an analytics dashboard of the amount of activations and users that have been in the ecosystem. So almost 4,000 users at this point. and these are the works that they have added, to the collection. So this is a wonderful place when, I'm looking to kind of explore and find new things that I go, because this is, these are the things that other people have chosen.
Question.
Yep.
The one before this, the about 300, 400 artworks, those were all before 2020, or
the ones that Daim donated were a mix, but there's about 270 that are in what we call the Genesis collection, that were all from artists who minted prior to 2020.
Oh, so even if you discover an artist now, but who has minted works before 2020, even they will be accepted in it.
They would be accepted, yes.
Wow.
And all of those pieces that you saw, those are owned by the museum as a foundation and nonprofit. None of these 9,204 NFTs are owned by the museum. But, we can still, it's almost like people have given us permission to kind of display and exhibit these. Exactly.
In the previous one, in the Genesis, have you purchased all of them, or what is the ratio of donation and purchased?
Everything has been donated.
Oh.
Everything has been donated. I donated maybe 150. And then
so you bought and donated.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. So
it's so difficult to find a work before 2020, and most of these works are donated. So that's a pretty cool.
Yeah, they say
collection.
Every year the number of NFTs has basically that are created has increased by basically 10x. So it's very difficult to, there's very few NFTs that were minted in those early days compared to what exists now, at least.
Probably this year will go down. It won't be 10.
Right. Right.
But still, we are all witnessing it.
Yep. So here is kind of what we call the MoCA multipass. This allows people to begin to kind of curate their collection into different subtabs, right? Something that like OpenSea has started to play with, but you can kind of see some of the works that I might have bought on Super Rare, for example, the Mooncats, and these are the ones that I've added to the community collection. This is going to be kind of when we get into. I guess we'll show MoCA shows first. So this is where you can invite people to put shows together. So this was one that was created by our members of Art Blocks artwork. These are of course open to everybody, and you can begin to play these and begin to kind of scroll through what these works look like. Or, if you want, you can kind of do it as a infinity scroll. If you just kind of want something interesting on the background, we can go here. So this was done by...
MoCA show is a 2D exhibition.
This is a 2D exhibition, right? So we have 22 collaborators in this one, working off of 2 collections from Art Blocks. So let's go back.
You spoke about MoCA Pass, the one you showed before this, or I think this is the one, right?
Yeah, the multipass.
Multipass. So what is multipass and who is it for?
Yeah, so this is for people to begin to this is how you add work into the community collection. So to prevent kind of spam, people are allowed to, go into their wallets and activate up to 10 NFTs every day.
By activate, you mean show or display there?
Correct. Right. So I can basically, it's just giving permission for them for our API to kind of pull them into our ecosystem and be able to read them.
Okay, so every day they have a limit of 10 artworks that they can upload and display.
That's correct. Yeah. But once you do this again, this is kind of this is an on-chain, transaction that is, forever. So let's see.
So you're basically minting. By uploading, you're minting. It's not like a web page where you're displaying other NFTs minted on other platforms. So it's basically
No,
minting on
this is everything that's in your collection. So this is these have already been minted by other people.
On Ethereum, on Tezos, or which blockchain?
It's, I believe, just on Ethereum. It might be Ethereum and Polygon.
So wherever they have minted, no matter if Super Rare or Foundation or OpenSea, it shows up here.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So, here's like the Foundation contract, for example.
So the pass is, what is the cost of the pass?
At this point, I think you just need one MoCA, which is going to be 18 cents.
So MoCA is your token.
Yes, MoCA is the museum's token.
As we're talking about tokens, does it give more utility if they are holding more tokens, or is just one?
It does, right? So kind of in this leaderboards, there is, the idea of MoCA points. So these are kind of the people who have, I guess, contributed the most to the museum. MoCA points is an aggregate of different things, including, how much you're staking, how many likes and comments you've left. If you have certain POAPs from doing the missions in our Discord, these MoCA points are an aggregate of kind of your participation in the museum. And MoCA points is, well, we can kind of get into that more when we get into the rooms. But MoCA points are basically how we begin to decentralize governance and decision making around curation, around how rooms are shown and showcased. So it's it's a pretty deep tech stack. If you'd like, we can move on.
Absolutely. Let's go to MoCA rooms. I quickly want to comment on this. So the amount of tokens you own and the more actively you participate in the initiatives of this museum, the more points you get, and those points you can utilize in the governance or in the decision making of the museum.
Correct.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the idea is that the collection of all of these rooms that have been created and all the rooms that will be created in the future is what kind of the physical representation of the museum will become, right? And
what do you mean by physical representation?
Is basically, when people step into, let's say, a future metaverse and they go to experience this, the ordering of the rooms will be determined by the governance. And I guess it's not physical, right? But the embodiment of the museum would be in the expression of how these rooms are kind of stacked and ordered, and given priority to kind of like which artwork is seen.
So that's a way of curation, which works you want to keep in the front and which will be at the other parts so that people can walk around and see.
Totally.
Does that depend on the MoCA points, or is this first come first thing?
No, so this does depend on the MoCA points, right? So I have here, I have 668,000 and change MoCA points. So I can begin to allocate points to different rooms here, and that determines the room's ranking, right? So
Oh,
Agora is like the main building of the museum, and right now it has the most points. So in this world, this would be kind of the first expression, the first room of the world that people would go into, right? The next one that they would see uh, would be this one that Renee, the CTO, owns. That was done by the architect Walt. And then this next one that they would experience would be this one owned by Klein Tono, done by Polygonal Mind. So that's kind of how we can begin to allocate these governance points and how that feeds into the expression of the curation, which rooms are shown and which artwork in those rooms is shown.
this can somebody put in all their points for their own museum?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Of course they can. You
I
know,
want to compliment on how cool this is, the decentralized way, and the I wanted to go and ask about this question on community, but
yep.
this is something more than a Discord. I've heard community and it just ends at Discords and commenting on each other, but this is really something in action, but decentralized power and DAO, as you say, for voting at things to be presented, which is very logical and obvious, or like it gives proper utility. It's not something to be encased in future. It's happening right real time in right now.
Right. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's this is technology that's been built over the past 2 years, and it's I think really really powerful. Um, so this is what kind of a the room that I own looks like. This is the artwork that I've put on the walls. We can begin to put different work on the walls. So maybe instead of, I don't know what we would want to do. Maybe let's just say we want to do an art block show. Let's see if I have this. So I can go
Quick.
back.
uh,
Go ahead.
mhm. Quickly before we get on this topic, one question related to the
Sure.
previous one about listing and ranking. We spoke about decentralization, but as founders, you'll naturally have more points, right? You have been in there since the beginning.
Totally.
And so it sort of becomes centralized. What do you think? The people who have joined in early, or the CTOs, or people who are more
E-
active, but naturally the team working behind it.
Yeah, I mean,
So
look, I call it a DAO in transition, right? I think we have some responsibility to steward it in an ethical way and in the vision that we see fit. But at the same time, we're not trying to like overpower the decision that people want, right? We want people to be participating. We want them to be in here. We want them, expressing what they're passionate about. Um, so our goal is really to kind of just build the technology, and then for the most part to kind of like step out of the way and let people do with it what they want.
mm. So have you set up rules that this decisions, the team, the MoCA team doesn't touch on these decisions or doesn't vote over here? Or how is it that you said you want to give opinions of others a priority, but when you're owning most of the coins, your veto has a lot of weight, right? So
Sure.
is there a mechanism for that?
um I don't think there is at this point a formal mechanism. I think a lot of the expression of the mechanism that you see now is really just us as our team beginning to play with it and beginning to use it, and making sure that it does work.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the full realization of this tech will continue to take years. The full distribution of the MoCA token will continue to take years. But I have no personal desire to go build a decentralized museum and then be like an autocrat about what happens. That doesn't really serve the purpose. Um, so
One, your experience with UN, how did, I'm pretty sure it has some dots connecting in the looking at the past. So
yeah,
if
yeah, I we certainly need to build the tech, we need to test the tech, but we didn't build this for us to go like play museum. We want everybody else to have that experience.
Okay, so this is us. This is your space. What do you call this room?
This is a room that I own. I just went into this community collection that we saw before. So this isn't even necessarily art that I own. Right. So, maybe we can put this gazer here, and then, we'll go over to here, and maybe we can put like this crypto New Yorker from Bright Moments, and then maybe we want to like change what we're displaying, and maybe we want to I don't know, put some cyber brokers in here. So we have
cyber brokers.
Do you know this community?
No.
It was kind of a PFP project done by one of the earliest crypto artists, Josie Bellini. Everything also on chain. So, we can put a couple of those up, right? Then we can go, let's see what else is in here. Maybe we'll go back to kind of one of the collections that we saw before.
So you can build a room and display works if you have owned it or from the community collection.
Yeah, or even from like the permanent collection of the museum. You can show what's in your multipass, you can show what's in the shows that you've participated in, or you can kind of show what's in like the permanent or community collection.
Can you just zoom out a bit, as this is only possible in the museum? You can see the pillars
yeah, right,
hanging
exactly,
from the top. Yeah.
The broken columns. Yeah,
Awesome.
and then it can just kind of like, we want to go to 11, can snap right back in. This is, we just did that one. Art does not equal profit. And then, we can save this. We can save the curation on chain.
You can save the curation on chain.
Yep.
Wow.
So this becomes kind of like a permanent mark of the room, that this was a curation that we did at this time during this podcast. The subgraph is behind, but it will, and this was done in a partnership, a grant that was given to us by FileCoin. So all of this is stored on IPFS, and it becomes a bit of like a Wayback Machine. From here, I can download the curated room.
The downloaded file is in what format?
It's a GLB.
Okay, so it's 3D and you can watch it. You can open it in Blender or whichever.
Yeah, so what I guess for illustrative purposes, I can share this tab and just kind of show how easy it is to go into a new Hyperfi world. And, here we are in this blank world. I can bring the museum room in. I need to kind of get out of the way.
Wow.
Right. And then, you just make it collidable. And then, suddenly all the artwork that you've curated is here. And, other people can begin to explore it.
This is absolutely fascinating. A bookmark of not just artworks, like we speak about NFTs as permanently on the blockchain as bookmarks of art, but this is a whole experience bookmarked on the blockchain.
Right. And we just did this in real time. So, something could happen. People could make a bunch of, art for whatever charity, maybe the war in Ukraine. They do the art in a day, they all upload it to the collection, they make this show, you bring it into this and you can deploy it and have a show in the metaverse within a day. Right? And you can invite people in, you can showcase the art like this. What's cool about this is, right, we can scale this 5 times larger.
How does one start making a room, like from the scratch?
There are different architectural programs. The ability to like make and create and mint rooms within our museum ecosystem is open to everybody. I have never made a room. We have this incredible
Can
designer.
you show us where the tab is for starting you making a room?
Yeah, so I think if you go to learn more about rooms, we'll share this. I'll just start here and say we have this incredible wiki with all of the information that anybody could ever desire about the museum. But we'll go back to kind of the rooms tab. So here, our CTO brought the rooms into Fortnite and was flying around. So, we can. So all to say that, these rooms are meant to travel and kind of go across. I am sure.
So like these are NFTs in themselves. So can people build it and sell it and buy it?
Correct. That's correct. So just to kind of control the supply, what we did is we forked the noun style contract. So we can share this tab. So I can, let's see if I'm in. So every time an auction is settled, a new floor is generated. You can kind of go back and see, these are the sizes of the rooms. So, now there's a 24-hour auction for room or for floor 345. And people use those to claim these rooms. So people will build rooms of different sizes.
I saw on the websites the floor number 16 was sort of on auction, or it was popping up.
Yeah, so that number speaks to the number of artworks that can fit in it.
Oh.
Right. So this one will hold 16 artworks. And just for example, like the room that I have here, this we call it the temple, can hold 32 artworks.
What is the difference between a floor and a room?
So a floor is basically the token that allows you to claim a room. We're kind of cleaning up this ecosystem, but that was effectively the room pass, the floor was basically the mint pass to be able to claim these rooms.
Is it like a landlord and a tenant situation where somebody owns the floor and it gives out rooms for other people to build on it? Is it like that?
No, it's just 1-to-1, right? So what happens is, we don't have any raffles live, but just to kind of make it fair, there was a raffle system to claim a room. So, in this very first one, 8 people participated to claim this first room, and they used their floor token to be able to try and win that raffle.
So raffle, in other words, is like a lucky draw. There's a selection of a pool and one person is picked out at a random and they win it.
That's correct.
So again, the floor, who owns the floor? You said auction and sale on it. So
yeah. So, whoever basically wins So at this point, right, there have been 345 floors created, which will translate in the future. Everybody is going to claim a room from those floors. But basically, there's only been I think like 40 rooms that have been created.
Is museum like a real estate builder who is selling floors, and then the floors are being used by
So the way that
the
we support,
artist?
the foundation is through the floor auctions, right? That's basically how we pay the tech team and how we continue to like support all of this curation technology.
That was one of my question. Belvedere Museum, they earn millions of rupees just by the footfall, and they have patrons. So
Yep.
how does MoCA make their money?
Yeah, it's through this, right? It's through, in normal museums, people sponsor different rooms. Patrons of the arts sponsor different rooms. Well, in this case, we are giving people rooms of the museum to, if they support us, they get a room, and they can showcase whatever exhibition they want as the Museum of Crypto Art.
From a collector's view, what do they get for owning a floor? So they have to own a floor, right? They're buying the floor.
They you buy a floor and then you use that floor to claim a room.
I am not getting it. There are 16 rooms in a floor. The collector buys the whole
No,
floor,
no, no,
but
no.
still
There's
has to
there's
collect.
there's 16 artwork slots.
Okay.
Right. So right. So this is basically like saying this is like a generic floor plan, right? It's a promise that you will get a room with 16 artwork slots in it. Now,
So it's basically a floor plan of the room. It's not a floor plan of the level of a building where there are different rooms. So it's basically the
correct.
room.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
one
That's
floor
where I was
equals
getting
one
convinced.
equals one room.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
so this is like the probability that these will come. And
So the collector buys a room, and they can showcase whatever the artwork they want in that plan. 16, they can have 16 display spaces and all that.
yep.
How does one person walking into a MoCA website get to display their work on that in that room or in the new room? How do they talk to the collector, or like how does it
Yeah,
happen?
so like if you want your work to be discovered in this way, you can just add it to the community collection, right? And then, if somebody puts their work in the community collection and sends me a message, hey, I'd love for you to like show this in one of, in the room that you own. Well, I would definitely do that for them, right? If they want to get together with like a group of people and do an exhibition within the museum and just ask for me to put it, in a room, I would be more than happy to do that, right? They can also go here to the playground, and after they've done that, choose any one of these, and they can go build, their own room.
Okay. So playground is a test run where you can build your own rooms and showcase your work and download, as we just saw. And you can
Exactly.
also have your work displayed in a collector's room where you can get more eyes on it. And
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely work with somebody who's collected a room already, but you don't have to. You can do it all all for yourself in this playground section. Right. So let's just say, maybe I wanted to do a curation of all things that were kind of like hand drawn or painted, or, me and my friends wanted to get together to, or you and your friends wanted to get together to do whatever type of show. this really gives people the ability to do all of that, and then to kind of just download the room that they've done and deploy it anywhere, just as easy as we did.
I really want to compliment once again. Aesthetically speaking, also, this is so beautiful because in 2021, we used to talk about different ways of showcasing artwork. I'm an artist, so different ways of showcasing your artwork, and we used to go through crypto voxels rooms and
Right.
some other.
Right.
So this we have a couple of them now also, which are sort of 2D-ish, but this is superb. Like the whole room is built out on yourself, and this is truly 3D. It's not like a web digital version of a real world room. So kudos to that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I think it's something that people don't even realize they have the ability to do in this way yet. So we got to get better with kind of marketing and explaining this is for everybody. So how do you add your artwork? How do you get this in here? How does everybody begin to play around? And that's what we want. We want people bringing these rooms into whatever metaverse. You can bring these into Decentraland, you can bring them into Somnium Space. You can.
Wow. I have one more question related to museum, and then some questions on the fundamentals of NFTs and metaverse.
Sure.
So, as a museum's role is to preserve things in time or memories of that time period, and it is very futuristic, right? 100, 200, 300, 500 years in the future, the significance of the museum will be there. So how is your vision for the future and with MoCA?
Yeah, I think there's two main goals here, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen if that's all right.
Absolutely, yes.
Sure. So one, I think decentralized technology has the ability to or at least it has the robustness to make permanent what was once very impermanent, right? So when we begin to talk about like legacy, it is very likely that all of our on-chain transactions will outlive us and continue to outlive us. So, my goal is for the museum to outlive me. And my goal is to make myself kind of redundant in this process. And that is the technology that we are building for. So, we have this incredible partnership with FileCoin in which every work that is uploaded to the community collection is stored forever on IPFS redundantly. So that is kind of a way of ensuring that it is ongoing and that legacy is preserved. And as I said before, each of the curations that are done is stored on chain immutably forever. So, in 500 years, if the Ethereum blockchain is still around, people will have the ability, perhaps to listen to this podcast and go back to, whatever it was, 12 p.m. EST on June 11th in 2023, find that curation and be able to kind of recall that thing that we did in real time. So, all of this is incredibly important to me because it speaks to legacy and it speaks to empowering other artists to, cement and preserve their legacy. It speaks to people who care about art right now to prove it and to prove it on chain. And, art exhibitions, physical art exhibitions come and go, but these will be here forever.
Wow, timeless, immortal in a way. That's a very good time to drop into the fundamentals. When we started, I started in 2021. The whole pitch for NFTs was, as we're talking, immortal and immutable. But as I went into deeper, I found out some loopholes in it. Or there are some things which are not that strong as much as we think or we want to think. NFTs is basically what Ethereum is storing is just the transaction, right? Who bought from whom at what time. It is a senseless code until that media file is associated with it. And when we come about storing the media file, it is on IPFS.
Yep.
IPFS is again a technology which is distributed like torrent. Like simplest example would be like torrent on different computers in fractions and then stored there. But that is not totally what do you say? There's a risk of on the IPFS, and there are different IPFS providers. So the thing that NFTs is built on, do you think that's hollow, the IPFS and the storage part of it, and how do you think that would be immortal as you would like it to be?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Of course, there are artworks that are fully on chain, right? So those can always be recalled, and all of that data is stored on the Ethereum blockchain. Do I think there is an existential threat to IPFS, FileCoin, these protocols failing? Not particularly, right? And let's say just like if the internet goes down, or if there's no electricity to continue to run these things, well, then the world at that point probably has bigger problems. So this is it is a question that some of like the smartest, biggest people are tackling. Certainly Jason Bailey, art gnome, with what he's doing at Club NFT. This is what we were trying to tackle with the idea of like preservation. How do we create redundancies of these artworks, so that like the marketplace isn't the sole entity responsible for preserving these works? That seems kind of silly because, as we know, marketplaces come and go. If you go to our Medium page, the lead writer Max Cohen just wrote a long piece on a work that we own from Xcopy that was minted in 2018 on a now defunct marketplace called rareart.io. And the metadata, the IPFS metadata associated with that image is broken. So what does that mean to still have the token, but it no longer points to the artwork because nobody supported, I guess, preserving it? So, we know what that artwork was. We have the original files, but because it no longer points there, well, does that diminish that artist creating in that moment in time? I don't believe so. I think it's really, the idea here is that like that moment of creation, that signature, that intent to kind of be here and be present, and record that history is very powerful. And for me, that is the art, like the collective, collaborative, participatory nature of engaging in new models of value and new financial systems, and new ideas around what it means to like tokenize and authenticate and like take that ability to be more sovereign, both as an artist and an individual, into one's hand.
Amazing. I got to read that article. What I am taking from this is again community consensus. Even if the IPFS failed in that case or metadata file is broken, it is the community again which is validating it and calling it out that okay, this is correct and this is true. This is what the traditional museums have been doing with
Right.
the old artworks and of Da Vinci or other people, and there are some experts which come and validate and tell which is wrong or right, from good or bad. they are doing a pretty good job these days as well. If you see, I mean, when we say community consensus, we also go into, if the artist is not that famous, we'll just go to the social media, right, to
Hmm.
see if they have posted these works before on other platforms and seen at other places. But those are again very centralized. And museums and traditional museums have also been using these techniques to have the, what we are talking of now is about provenance of the artwork. And
Yeah.
this is another pitch or the selling point of NFTs, that it maintains the provenance. So my question is, if traditional museums are also doing it so well, why is the need for NFTs and crypto art?
I mean, I just, they might have done it very well for physical work, right? But we're moving into very rapidly into the digital, where the speed of creation and the responsiveness to that creation is immediate, right? So we need kind of base layer protocol level containers that are doing this for us in real time. For example, right? Just take a viral meme. Nobody knows who created that meme. Nobody really cares, right? But if somebody like mints it first, well, then they can always go back and say, like, this was the original time that this was created. And Foundation as a marketplace really built their marketplace on the back of going and finding those original meme creators and having them tokenize it now and saying, like, this is mine. I'm deriving the value from it. So we all know how easy it is to, copy and save and post, and this problem will only continue to get worse, right? And then if you add in, like AI and deepfake technology, and right, what does it mean to actually begin to authenticate something and know that it is coming from the person who claims that it is theirs? Well, that becomes massively, massively important in the very near future.
I like that answer, and it's real time. And this medium of artwork needs modern solutions, and that's what is being provided with NFTs. Another threat to NFTs and crypto itself comes from quantum computing. So, do you
Sure.
still think NFTs are safe even with the quantum computing coming in? The whole concept of crypto and blockchain is based on that uncrackable code or proof of maintaining everywhere or even staking.
Yep.
So, when quantum comes in, this can be easily overturned. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, if quantum computers are able to break like SHA-256 encryption, again, there's much bigger problems than kind of them attacking crypto. I think encryption is upgradable, but
Can you just tell us what is shard for the context of the viewers?
yeah, SHA-256 encryption. I honestly am not going to be that.
Is it no? I mean, how is it related to this conversation? Is it the
so
encryption of
so
Ethereum or
it's the encryption. I know it's the encryption of Bitcoin.
okay?
Right. SHA-256. What does it say here? Cryptographic hash functions designed by the United States National Security Agency.
Oh,
Um, and I know uh, I'm quite confident that these are the hash algorithms that Bitcoin uses to kind of encrypt. But I
so
am I
not
am a
just
very I
Bitcoin.
am a very non-technical person, so
So not just Bitcoin. It's important because it's the national security intelligence has made this, and
it's
if
it is a
quantum can crack it, it is a bigger threat than just for
yeah, it
cryptos.
is a
Okay.
broad encryption standard across the internet, and I imagine many of the messaging apps. I think probably when WhatsApp says it's encrypted end to end, it is using SHA-256 encryption. Um, so if this is broken, you know, what I imagine would happen is that, they would basically freeze from the point that it wasn't. They would upgrade the encryption standard and they would fork into the new encryption standard, right? It's not like quantum computing is just going to break all the encryption, everybody's Bitcoins are going to be taken, and then all of crypto gets liquidated, right? There would be a fork and an airdrop and an upgrade to a new encryption standard. And I think long before that, I would imagine, I unless somebody, I would imagine probably a white hat would be working to upgrade all of the encryption standards to fit a quantum computing model before some rogue renegade actor just kind of wants to see kind of the world burn. I
So
don't
equally,
imagine that they would have access to the technology first.
I love the way you put it. I mean, beautiful. It is, I mean, the white hats or the good cops would, I mean, the people building it would have first access to it. And as much as thread quantum has to blockchain, that whole thing can be seen from other side, that even quantum could improve the encryption, right? It could take
Yeah,
it to another level.
yeah, that's the idea.
Amazing. You spoke about Filecoin as your IPF provider. How did you choose Filecoin?
I had been familiar with them since 2017. And just kind of it is almost, I know like Manifold, for example, uses Arweave, but IPFS is kind of what we consider to be the gold standard in the NFT space as far as storage. So I know Filecoin as an institution is also looking at and wanting to work with museums around preserving and archiving digital artifacts. Now, you go and look at what traditional museums are doing right now, and they are just like scanning documents and uploading it to JSTOR, which is a centralized repository. So there is so much room for traditional institutions to begin to benefit from like decentralized storage solutions. And that's basically what we told them. Like, let's begin to work together to pioneer how we preserve and document and maintain digital artifacts. And then we can go together and we can go talk to any institution that you want and show them what the technology is doing. So
Absolutely.
that was it. We because we're a new institution, because we get to be an experimental playground, right? Because we're not kind of tethered by a long-standing history, and we get to be first movers in a lot of what is going to eventually happen and the art experiences that I think people will eventually want, and we get to kind of share and bring those lessons to other institutions who are willing.
So between Artweave and Filecoin, how did you choose? What is their advantage of Filecoin over Artweave?
Yeah, I am not technical enough to know if there is. I know that Filecoin is like a more adopted protocol. It has
Let's do one thing. Let's have Filecoin as the guest, so our audience can dive details about IPFS, because
sure.
this is an important question. Unlike blockchains where everybody's doing it and the ledger is just maintained, somebody has to pay the bills for IPFS, right? For the electricity or for all these things, and like OpenSea saves it on Google Drives.
Yeah.
IPFS, somebody has to maintain it, right? If it stops maintaining, somebody has to recreate it. It has to be open, and there's a whole technology for it. RP is promising to just pay once and forever it will store. So I want to figure out, and I think the best people to talk would be Filecoin about it.
Definitely.
Let's get back to MoCA and our guest, whose expertise and who has seen the crypto revolution and artwork. I want to talk to you about Metaverse. Uh, what are your thoughts on what is metaverse? Because it is not completely 3D. It's people say it's still Web 2. It's just a virtual way of looking at thing. It is not even connected. There are different metaverses which don't even connect. It's not like you can go from one place to other. So, what is metaverse for you?
Yeah, metaverse is an extension and augmentation of reality, right? Twitter is as much a metaverse as anything else, right? It is being able to kind of step into realms that exist beyond physical space and get exposure to kind of different ideas. So a lot of these Web 2 platforms or apps, be it like Instagram or TikTok. These are all, in my mind, metaverses because you are extending your own reality in your exposure to other people's thoughts, other people's experiences. And that becomes like a meta extension of your physicality. Now, I think, the next step for us away from kind of the 2D web interface is the idea that we can move into more of a social and spatial experience. We know that, you know, loneliness is an epidemic, teen suicide is increasing. And I think largely this is because people are feeling disconnected and unconnected to each other through the technology that is moving. So if we are able to create more spaces in which people are able to like anonymously and comfortably explore different identities, different environments, different like exposures to, for me, like art is what I aimed to provide, right? How does this art begin to communicate like our closeness, our connection, our humanity to one another, and how does that create like a social experience, right? So I want people to come together. I want people to put shows together around things that they're passionate about. I want them to invite their friends into these worlds to experience that, because that is facilitating a unique connection, where like not a single individual is more like the focus and center of attention as like an influencer, but where the arts and that collaborative effort is speaking to larger. And that is like almost a forgotten social construct of like our own need as humans to exist in community. I think, broadly, when like I go back to the conversation at the beginning of like the difference between what artists are tasked to do and what corporations are tasked to do. Well, like the need of capitalism and the need of corporations is really to make people either feel lonely or that they don't have enough, so they can sell them something, right, to try and like fill that need. um Art, on the other hand, is meant to interrogate these things so that people can ask questions about themselves and grow.
Beautiful. Talking about different aspects on this. So, major thing about metaverse is the social aspect of it, coming together and doing things in a 3D way. Because social, if we just speak about social, we already have the Web 2 platforms, right? Which
Right.
are, and these things. It is being able to interact virtually. How would you, um, I mean, when I hear on Twitter Spaces, some people complaining are that when I joined in, the selling point of metaverse was that I could buy my skins in a game and use those skins or that gadgets or tools in some other games. I
Right.
own those things and I can use it in some other games, but we still haven't reached a phase where they are cross connected or they are completely decentralized in a way. Like metaverse are still owned by a corporation and they can pull the plug on it. So how do you think we'll reach the level we have reached with NFTs in metaverse, like totally
Yeah,
interchangeable? Or
you begin to think about like Fortnite and Roblox, even just Apple all of these are ring fenced. Counter-Strike, for example, right? All of these are ring fenced ecosystems in which it is to the benefit of the corporation to keep people inside their economy and spending money inside their economy so that they can tax them on each transaction that they do, right? So the way I see all of this developing is no different than how computer operating systems developed. And crypto is really the Linux. Crypto is really like, let's open source everything. Let's have each of these composable building blocks. And, any other way would be like more of the Apple version of like, let's keep everything in the App Store. Let's have developers in our ecosystem. And, at the end of the day, these are just kind of two divergent forks that people will eventually have to decide if they actually value ownership of, the things that they're creating, or if being within that ring fenced ecosystem and the distribution that provides is more powerful than what they would be able to kind of generate in more of an open world. So I think, gaming companies will only respond if gamers begin to demand that they actually have ownership of these skins. And at this point, I don't think people know that they even have the option to have ownership of these assets.
So it's awareness that that we come at, and that these are very good question to ponder on, right? These for-profit corporations are providing better services and more convenience to people. That's why they are still there with it. That's why they don't really value ownership of digital assets. NFT is basically ownership of digital asset. Web3 is basically revolutionizing the ownership aspect of the internet.
Right.
So there the problem is not that big. I think we'll need to have many more platforms going down to realize people that I lost my all the work to Instagram or Twitter after it gone down went down.
Yeah.
So,
It's a major like risk. What happens when, say, your a Twitter account is hacked and you lose access to all of those followers, right? It's, there is kind of no carryover. There's nothing else you can do other than kind of start from zero. And it's not like crypto is perfect either, because people's wallets get hacked all the time, all of their assets stolen. So, we have to find, again, what is that right balance for each individual between like reliance and dependency on a centralized institution that kind of keeps those things, and the responsibility that they want to have for like the safety and security of the assets that they control.
uh, I really in this throughout the conversation I really like your flow of explaining the concept. Like you are totally you have gone very deep in it to be able to explain it this simply. I like that. So since Web3, there I have been very fearful for all the influencers and creators. This podcast is on YouTube and Spotify and all the audio places or platforms which are centrally owned.
Yep.
So I was ignorant, and I felt ignorant. Ignorance was a bliss, because I didn't even think about what if YouTube goes down. All these followers and subscribers which people really value will go down with it. So we never really thought about it, but that is a possibility. And then that's where the importance of web3 web3 comes in. So then you start wondering, right, should you really spend so much time and create your following, or you're creating a whole existence, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who has spent 10 years creating Mr. Beast, for example, for his following on Twitter, on YouTube and all these things, and if the platform goes down, or if they just block your account for whatever reasons they give, whatever reasons they decide, it's gone, done. People might go into severe depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. It's
All
happened, it's happened again and again, and you just I don't necessarily have the answer there.
it's still to figure out, work in progress. we
Right.
as we need, but the positive thing is we are still ready. We know what can happen, and what MoCA is doing is we are ready. We are already implementing a parallel system for decentralization and preserving those aspects in a with a new technology. So that is MoCA with us. We spoke about Apple, and it's in the news, their VR goggle, and that's a big contribution, and something that we are waiting for it to add to this whole experience of visiting metaverse and your MoCA rooms, for example, or the worlds that you'll build. What are your comments on this new product of Apple?
Yeah, for me in 2020, I had a Quest, and that was what was getting me so excited, right? The idea that you could step into a new world and be so immersed in it that it was really hacking your senses, right? I'm less interested in like the browser based experience. I want people to get lost in these worlds. And, I think the quickest neural pathway to the brain is through the eyes, right? So, that was, in 2020 and 2021, a lot of the work and the building that we were doing was in VR. Now, the fact of the matter is you cannot get to distribution and scale at this time through VR. It doesn't work. So Apple entering the space after 8, 9, 10 years of research, whatever it is certainly interesting. Does it suddenly make it accessible to everybody? No. But does it kind of provide like a high level signal as to where we are headed and where we are going in 5, 10 years? Perhaps. I still question, the majority of people's desire and interest to transition away from a flat screen into a headset. And I wonder if this technology does tend to further isolate and alienate people from one another, but I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see, and I'm curious to continue to build technology that will find its fullest expression in these types of spatial VR, AR environments.
Amazing. And not just VR, but even AR, like
Right.
carrying those filters around with you. I'm very curious how it unfolds. One question related to that, you said what keeps you going, right? Like what do you want to see in the future? So these are not really good times. A lot of people are left, and there are hardly 15, 20 transactions on Foundation.
Right.
What keeps you going, even when?
Look, I've never cared about the market, right? I think I think people who are compelled to create will continue to create. It's it was a major hype cycle, right? But the reasons that I'm here and the underlying philosophies of the technology and the people that are creating have not changed. We know we are in a broad-based generational transition into digital experiences, digital environments. People will continue to demand that more of their experiences are produced and created in this medium. So do I want to continue to work alongside digital creators and finding like the biggest and best expressions as the newest technology develops? Absolutely. Right. So when I say the museum is focused both on history and preservation and kind of documenting this flow of technology and how this art gets expressed, yes, but it's also very much right like this forward thinking, forward envisioning think tank where we invite people to come in and work with us to experiment and showcase and demonstrate where we're going. So, whether the market is alive or dead, it doesn't bother me because I'm not really selling NFTs myself, but I want to continue to support like the people that are contemplating what it means for humanity to become so intertwined with the digital and the technology, and like the philosophical implications of what like this transhumanist ascendance means. Uh, and again, for like individuals and artists to be leaders of this revolution as opposed to corporations.
Individual and artists to be forefront of the revolution. Beautiful. What would you suggest artists who have come in with a lot of expectation have gone back to their usual thing and uh, not unsatisfied or unhappy about them not meeting their expectations? What is a word of motivation or encouragement you'd give?
Yeah, I think one, you always have to, never listen to the media, right? So like whatever you hear in the news is probably not going to be the real story, right? So if you were promised untold riches and everybody was making astronomical sales, well, the whole system that is created of media is meant for you to feel like you're not enough, right? So then you go buy whatever, a new iPad to maybe become like a better artist, or you go buy something to try and level up. But I don't think like I think genuine creative expression comes from doing more with less. And that is always what has excited me. So there's only one thing to do, and that's just to keep going. And to look at those feelings and identify the source of those feelings and figure out at what point, why do you feel bad, right? Do you feel bad because like somebody told you something that didn't turn out to be true? Do you feel bad because you're on social media and you're looking at other people making sales and you think that maybe that should be you? In all instances, right? Emotions are a reflection of yourself and your inside, and it's an opportunity to kind of learn and grow and process. And, once you have come to like an answer, well, then it's an opportunity to kind of like reflect and grow. So I would just say for anybody that's feeling bad, identify the source of the feeling and then hopefully, put it into a piece of art. And share that feeling, because if you're feeling it, you're not alone. And the way that you explore it and figure it out and express it, maybe that will be helpful for everybody in kind of resolving the collective. I think there's probably a lot of collective trauma that artists are feeling around a false promise and expectations of what NFTs were and could provide.
Wow. You have a feature of art incubator on your place. My understanding of incubator is promoting marketing or other things, taking care of other things for the artist, so they can focus on the art. What is your uh, what happens at your incubator?
Yeah, so the origin of the incubator was there were 18 parcels of land in Somnium space that we were giving away to individual artists to go build exhibitions of their own. Now the incubator has evolved into how do we kind of provide, maybe like a marketing and promotional umbrella to either collectives of artists or DAOs that we are kind of vision and value aligned with. So, these are all groups who, just reach out to us and that we have connected with. and would be kind of informal partners. So we do information sharing. We might do exhibitions together. Everything is in this case is rather loose and informal, but I think in general, if anybody has a need, or if anybody represents a group of kind of like diverse individuals who are looking to the museum as a platform that resonates with their group kind of philosophically, then we would love to work together and share information and grow in whatever ways we can.
Do you also provide a stipend or something like that, monetary things to support artists in the incubator?
Not at this time. I will tell you, running a nonprofit foundation in the Web3 space is not a lucrative endeavor. So, I will say that, for example, recently, Una, who is going to be a guest curator of one of the museum exhibitions, was able to secure a grant from Zora. So the artists who will be kind of like selected in that exhibition will be paid. But for the most part, it's more about just kind of information sharing and a willingness to grow together.
Fair enough, and very good, and even that is a big deal for these time and for the consistency of shown. So cheers and kudos on that. Our show is focused on art, culture, and entrepreneurship. So we spoke a lot about art. I want to touch on our culture and then, of course, entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Culture, you showed me statistics of the usage of the platform. How many, most of the users are from what country, in what percentage?
That we don't track. I know we have an incredible following in places like Argentina and Turkey and India, and parts of Southeast Asia as well. I would say the artists that are, for example, represented in our permanent collection are incredibly diverse. So, interestingly enough, where this is less attractive to people is going to be like North America and Europe. And where this is more attractive to people is going to be in, I guess, what would be considered developing nations. And I think largely because that is, this is not a market exercise. And this is, alternatively about getting more voices heard, especially creative voices. And, when I go back and, we think about like the traditional art canon that was preserved, again, being 90% Western white male, this is suddenly, more of an egalitarian way for creative expression in different places to be heard. So I think people that were not traditionally represented in these institutions and in these museums find a lot of hope and promise in the idea of what this can become and how art in the future can be expressed and represented.
You sort of answered my second question also. But the third one, in the traditional, as you said, 90% white male, we see that most of the crypto holding is again in North America or in the Western world. They have more interest naturally into NFTs and crypto. Yet, why did you state that they, the North American, the Western world has less inclination towards what you're doing?
Yeah, because this is less of a market exercise and it's more of a philosophical exercise. This is, I think, especially in North America, the culture is capitalism, right? Capitalism is the culture. We don't have a like long-standing history and tradition, or even like a respect for human life and values. And so, if it's not for sale, if it's not being traded, if it's not at like the benefit or the detriment for somebody else, if it's not part of this like incredible rat race, well, then it's not outside of our culture, or then it is outside of our culture. So, this is something that America specifically is exporting everywhere. And, I would like to at least be, the counter side to somebody who has seen it, to somebody who has lived it, and to say and point that there could be a different way if people just kind of collectively get behind a new operating, call it an operating agreement, or a new just way of being.
Capitalism is the culture. Quote of the day.
Yeah,
Wow.
really.
You were into the corporates. You've studied in New York, and throughout this episode, you took several digs at the corporate and lives and their corporate mentality. So, can you take us through what exactly is happening on the ground? We see a lot of movies and we have an impression of what happens, but what do you see is actually happening in the high towers of New York? What is the mentality here? There.
Well, I can tell you, like the saddest place to be in the world is going to be Midtown Manhattan from like 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. when all of those people in those office towers are like getting off of work, right? You never see a smile on any of those faces, right? These could be some of the wealthiest, most powerful people in all the world, and nobody's happy, right? So, when I began, and, I think about some of my friends, incredibly bright, who have gone into corporate law, or who go and work for private equity firms, hedge funds. Again, like these are people who are selling their time for exceptional amounts of money, in maybe like 30 years to retire and have a nice life. So it has driven all of the humanity out of humans and replaced it as a product. And if you are not like the most efficient, hardest working, if you are not the most product of that product, then they tell you you're not going to make it and you won't be successful, and that you have no value. So just being aware of that. We don't need like New York as a centralizing force to do this business anymore, right? These global epicenters of like banking and industry, be it like London or Paris, they don't serve the as necessary a function to connect people, and we can do this in a more distributed global fashion with the tools that are provided to us. Now, this is going to take some time to express itself. But I think COVID woke a lot of people up to that they don't necessarily need to be in the office every day. They don't need to be doing these long commutes, right? They can still be productive from like home environments, which I think will, again, create a generational shift to people living outside major cities, as I'm doing now. And, and I think there will have to be some sort of like reconciliation of what this system is doing, and ultimately a return to human dignity.
A human dignity. Wow. Can you share a story from your time there? You started with investment banking, and what was a thing that or an incident that caused a switch for you?
Yeah, I don't want to be too specific, but you begin to look at the actions and behaviors and incentive structures of these people, and almost by necessity, it's like it's criminal. You
Straight away criminal. Wow.
yeah, it's finances is cutthroat, right? Business is cutthroat. Everybody is fighting for every last penny. And I think that attitude is infectious, right? Maybe like the proper analogy is, I have friends who are like dating in New York City, right? And, in New York City, you don't date one person, you date 5 people, you date 10 people, right? Everybody is going around dating each other, like trying to basically climb up as high as they can on this social ladder. But, enough is never enough, and nobody is willing to settle, and nobody is willing to like sit and build and work on something. It's always grass is greener. So you have just, you just, again, it's like another reason why nobody is ever like happy and content. And because everybody is just constantly like climbing over each other to try and find like what is next or do something better, or and it's a really tough way to operate.
I can only imagine sitting here. It's a good time to transition into entrepreneurship. Um, you started, you founded a not-for-profit firm. You took us through what inspired you and the whole operation of this. How did you assemble your team?
Uh, it was I don't want to say it was like universal, but it was it was almost like a natural selection in the people that were attracted to the mission. um I had been doing some investing with a friend in 2017. He in 2020 introduced me to our incredible developer team. I was running kind of like this friends and family fund, and I had let them know that I was going to be spending less time on the fund and looking for investment opportunities, and was going to be focused more on this museum. And one of the members kind of reached out to me and said, I have a daughter who just studied computer science and art history, and I think she would be perfect. And that's where I, met co-founder and director of the museum, Shivani. Um, so it was really just a lot of passionate people around these topics and this intersection, and wanting to explore where this industry was going, that came together and kind of made the commitment to, actualize and operationalize what was just ideas, and then to translate it and cement it into the technology. Um, and to really see this vision and this value system forward.
Wow, nice. So just things just unfolded. One thing led to the another.
Yeah, I think if
You didn't
you
like put out ad or put out tweet to
no
come
I
assemble.
no, I mean, I think everybody has self-selected themselves into this. I always say the museum is open to anybody that is passionate about this to find a way to express that passion. It's a very flat organization. We met a couple artists up in Montreal who do a lot of like graphic and design work for us. Our director of programming is down in Argentina, where they've been so supportive of us. Daim Al Yad, he just contributed those 70 works. We did, our 4th solo show with him. He's a very, intensely mission driven individual, and finds alignment of his own personal values within the umbrella of the museum. And this is not like a brand that anybody wants to like own or control. It's just whoever is most passionate about what this means, like, let's give them as much space as possible to express that, so that other people can feel the freedom to like associate and express that as well. And
Beautiful. How did you take the responsibility of finances? Somebody new joins into the team, even though they are passionate. there is an expectation that I'm working for this person or in this organization. I hope at least the finances would be taken care of, and I can just imagine how tough it would be, even looking at it as an NGO. So how did you solve that equation?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's leadership at the top, right? I'll say that, me and Shivani have never been paid for this work. Um, there are definitely people within the organization that do get paid, but it's not like we have an incredibly lucrative treasury. The developers get paid to build the tech, but a lot of the tech, as you've seen, is been there, and I think we're way, way ahead of. I don't think there's anybody else quite doing what we're doing. Um, so, from here, do we have to look to be lean and resilient, and do we depend on donations? Yes. Are we doing a big fundraiser uh, right now? Yeah, we're trying. We're trying to figure out the ways to make this organization sustainable, but at the same time, by continuing to provide more value and making it more open and making it more participatory, so people continue to feel and invite more people into it.
You and Shivani have not been paid. So just for meeting your running expenses, you might have to do something else, right? How are you managing both of these?
Yeah, I was lucky enough and prudent enough to have been in crypto early, right? So I think a lot of the philosophical alignment that I had in the beginning of my crypto adventure was translated into a lot of the philosophy of the museum, and beginning to communicate that philosophy to artists who might then resonate with a crypto art philosophy and be able to spread that symbolically or thematically through the work that they're creating, translating it into a visual language is what excites me. Um,
Mhm.
I think as much as I love the art and the culture, my background is economics and psychology. And, what I've seen is a financial system that doesn't work for everybody. And what I feel the promise of crypto is that there is at least more ability for access and inclusion and dynamism of capital. Um, so I want people to begin to experiment, with these
You
types of value systems that aren't
Ec-
backed by governments.
finance and psychology, and your co-founder is computer science and arts. So very interesting
Yeah.
place you're coming from. Finance and psychology, wouldn't don't you think that would have been better suited for stock trading?
Yeah, I took the first job I could get, and that was investment banking. So, um, I was a great stock trader. I was a great, venture investor, right? I did very well in crypto. I kind of I proved that to myself, right? So I didn't need to spend a career doing it because I already knew that I could. So for me, it's always about, well, how do we transform and become something else? How do you start at the bottom and do something new and work your way up? And can I do it? I've never run a museum before. I had no idea what it was like to run a museum, but I asked
Hmm.
myself if I could do it. Um, and if I could do it in a way that aligns with what I thought was interesting and important. So I like doing these things. I don't like being static and defined, and I
Hmm.
don't like to play into old world systems. Um, uh,
I
yeah,
like that thought. I like that thought because uh, you said you knew that you could do it. and you want to do something which you're curious about, and you want to test and experiment if you can do this or not.
Yeah.
I always wonder about these questions, finding fulfillment in life or meaning in life. So it's a very nice way of looking at it, exploring, even if it doesn't make a penny, exploring and doing things. So, from penny to the money question, did you save up before this to come into this, or how did you think about the money? I'm not going to make anything. It's unpredictable crypto, and I'm not going to be paying myself for many, many years to come in the future. How am I going to support myself or people dependent on me?
Like, it's always a prayer, right? I was at least, in 2017, I wasn't quite, as well prepared as I was for like the cycle this time around, right? I recognized, I had the experience and recognition, and, was able to, I was better at, I would say, identifying kind of the peak. Now, is it always hard to go through these ridiculously extreme periods of volatility? Yes. Right. But if you go and, I had an interview with Fortune. It was, I guess, February of 2022. And, and I called for a cataclysmic crash in the NFT market, right? Because to me, it was so blindingly obvious that everybody was going around like spreading lies, creating something that was unsustainable. Um, and, and frankly, that hurts people like me who are trying to build something that is like meant to be sustainable and is meant to be long term and doesn't care about the market. So yeah, I mean, I have been uniquely adapted and suited to deal with risk, right? I don't think there are many people, like myself that have like the risk tolerance and can kind of sit here in the pain and know when it's going to be very painful and know when it's going to be, so the only person you can trust in your life is yourself, right? And if you're hearing something from somebody else, well, then it's probably too late, right? So you never want to be a pawn in somebody else's game. So you really have to like, that's the only advice I can give. And that was like my biggest transformation in coming into crypto is what does it mean to continue to be self-sovereign and have like the resiliency and the ability to continue to exist and express like yourself in the most true and authentic way that you can. And at some point that is like a combination and a personal decision around like how much freedom do you want, how much money do you need, and finding that balance.
Wow. What are some more tips that you would give to the audience for resilience and being strong and controlling themselves even times of this extreme risks?
Yeah, I mean, look, all reward in life is a factor of risk, right? If you want big rewards, then you have to be prepared to take big risks, right? And the only way you can be prepared to take risks is if you have no fear of failure, right? And the only way to have no fear of failure is to experiment and experiment and experiment and fail and fail and fail and fail and fail again and again and again and again, right? So, the thing that all of this is trying to tell people is like you have to be more creative. You have to break out of your habits. You have to go continue to explore new things and find out what that means to you. Like you are never too old. You are never too anything. Your excuses and the stories that you tell yourself about yourself is what is holding you back. Now, like I recognize probably that 99% of people have obligations that keep them in like similar structures, and those are structures that they want to preserve and try and continue, and whether that is like family or business or career, or these feelings of responsibility. Well, to that I'll say, like, yes, it's true, but also the world is very cold to many of those things. And the world, I think, is increasingly looking for people that don't like stay the same, but are able and willing to change and grow with it. So you have to be preparing yourself for change in order to accommodate like all of, I really think we're at like the beginning of just a tremendous period of exponential change and restructuring and reordering.
Wow. Um, Risk is being ready to not care about failure. I really love that quote. And I was searching for, I mean, we have these thumbs up and likes on Twitter spaces, right? I was trying to send you likes and hundreds over here. But anyways. So I think another aspect of that is, as you mentioned, the stories you tell yourself. My another question on the same line comes with the confidence also. So fear of failure, as you mentioned, just keep going it and keep failing it to overcome it. What do you think about keeping your self-esteem high, or for your self-confidence? What are some tips on that?
Yeah. It's this is difficult, right? Because you have to, in today's world, you have to have a willingness to put yourself out there, right? And you have to be self-assured in the things that you believe, to the point where anybody else's judgment uh, against what you truly believe is like water off of a duck's back, right? So you have to, be willing to put yourself out there. You have to have the resolve to be able to like handle and take criticism around something that you truly deeply believe in. But the hardest thing in the world is finding, right, that center of what you truly and deeply believe in, and having that confidence to be able to express it, right? So confidence is always a function of like resolve and belief. So if you don't know what that thing is, right? If somebody told you something and you parrot that, and somebody says, well, no, that's not correct. Well, because you listen to this other person, you're probably very vulnerable to listen to this other person. And now suddenly you have a conflict of like identity and belief. So, you have to find that thing that is inside of you, that is your highest expression of self. And then confidence is very, very easy, right? Because that is truly who you are. That is truly what you believe. So you have to like minimize all of the external inputs into what somebody else is telling you. You can give yourself, if you don't know what that thing is, the freedom to go explore and take in a lot of ideas. But then this is truly about just like sitting with yourself, meditating, doing that work to find what is the one true central guiding principle. Because frankly, you only get one thing that you want to communicate, right? And this is like a part of identity in public open worlds, is like you get one thing and you have to communicate it again and again and again and again and again. So that becomes the identity that you are really known for.
Hmm. You sort of answered the next question also. Going a level deeper, I wanted to know, how do you come to one central belief? Because the main enemy of the self confidence is not having that belief and listening to others' opinion, and doing this sometimes, doing this, testing it out other times. And so you said meditate and focus and get to know that thing. But my follow up question to that is, in how much time? There is a FOMO, fear of missing out, if you don't do things in your early 20s, when you're 20s, or even Like I had this big problem when I was just 18, 19 in college. I was like, Mark Zuckerberg started his company at 17, even Bill Gates and all these people started this, and I still don't have one central idea that I want to build on. And that happened for a long time. And it's just not with me. I'm seeing many of cousins or friends or other people I speak to. Um, I they know that okay, I need to find one central thing, but they're also afraid that if they don't find it quickly, they will be wasting a lot of time and losing a chance of getting a compounding return on whatever they start doing from early on. How do you aspect the time factor in this and coming down to something that you believe in yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you can never know the path of the journey when you're on it, right? So I did not know that, right? Like that investment banking and then that work with the UN and finding kind of like a middle ground in that like wealth management firm, and then that random opportunity that was provided to me. So I think many times people will tell you like life is linear, and like growth is meant to be linear, but it's really not. In my experience, it's more of a stepping stone, right? You might spend 2 years in one thing and then suddenly you have an exponential step up, and then you might spend 5 years and then suddenly there's an exponential step up. um and much of that time you don't understand what those experiences are providing you for the next step in the iteration, right? I would not have been successful in crypto if I did not have an investment banking, a trading background, and kind of a knowledge of VC and angel investing. Like I wouldn't have, but none of those things were, part of my journey. But that was an exploratory phase through my 20s where, I knew the types of things that interested me. They weren't perfectly aligned. Um, but I was passionate enough about them in a way that like that was my exchange of like labor and brain power to provide for myself in those times. um Ideally, if anybody is looking for, like larger financial success, you have to at some point be a founder and you have to own something, and you can't really work for anybody else. um so if that is your goal, to be that, and that is, I'm telling you, that is like a very stressful and hard life. And do I think about all of the people that have joined alongside and like providing for them, and are they like my family because we believe these things? Absolutely. um so I don't even really remember what the initial question was at this point.
No, you answered it very
Yeah.
well. In simple analogy of the stepping stones, and it is from the conversation you explained it that it's a very natural flow, and not to stress very much about it, and just keep doing,
I would never
keep
have,
going on.
10 years ago, I would never have expected to be here. 5 years ago, I would never have expected this. Life, there are little moments in life that pull you way off of the expected course. And, I would welcome people to like invite more of those moments into their life, right?
Hmm.
Like not to get so worried about like everything compounding into that one thing, especially if you have like any doubt about if that is like the fullest expression of yourself, right? Like
Hmm.
I went into first day of university knowing, right, that I was going to be pre-med neuroscience and behavior, right? And I went to that first chemistry class and I was like, okay, like this is not for me. And I just knew it, right? But if I had listened to the story that I had told myself for all of those years, then I wouldn't have had whatever it is, the courage or belief to go explore, right? Like psychology and economics instead. And I probably would have been, some sort of doctor today, but we wouldn't be having this conversation, and my life would be totally different. But I probably wouldn't be as happy as I am now.
Yeah, unhappy doctor
Yeah,
from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. New York Midtown.
yeah, exactly.
All right, beautiful. On to the signature round. These are set of questions that we ask all our guests to have their different perspective on it. And as you're talking about it, I want to begin with this question: how to make money?
I mean, there's a million different ways to make money in this world, right? If you are talking about, how to make the most amount of money, well, you have to own something, right? And you have to own something that is desirable, and you have to be willing to either build a business around that, um, or in my instance, I have had a ability to recognize new and novel opportunities before a lot of people, and that is a function of the freedom that I give myself to explore kind of trends that are coming up on in the tech world. So you can either go very deep into one thing, or you can go very broad, right? And, if you go deep into one thing, you want to be assured that that one thing is going to be around in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And it's going to be something that people are going to be using every day, and that it is relevant to not just the now, but obviously the future, right? And then if you're going to go broad, then then you have to have enough like freedom to explore and get to the fringe of similar types of places. And you can either become an investor or a domain expert, or you can go build a business. So what I love about the museum and the people that it invites in is, like I said, it's a place where I get to learn from creatives and artists and people who are domain experts on things like augmented reality, virtual reality, crypto, right? Like art and culture. Generally, it's going to be the most creative people, the most free people who are going to get to these places first and begin to experiment in and provide those indicators of the future. So, I leveraged like
Wow.
investing success into kind of like this think tank thing where I continue to get to see the latest developments of what is going to be future tech and how these products are going to be expressed and shared.
Wow. You have gone very broad and used those experiences to implement different places and different things. Um, Going about deep, people can understand, right? But about going broad, there's a book called Range. Some person having multiple skill sets and multiple interests. How would somebody in that category make money apart from investing? Of course,
Yeah,
investing is a good way to recognize what's going to come and not. So, what
yeah.
else?
I'm gonna just keep riffing on that. Is that capitalism tells people they need to be very niche, right? They need to become an expert in one thing, and that is like the way to provide the most value. Now, again, with AI, advancements in AI, advancements in machine learning, um, suddenly there's a lot of fear around redundancy and what is like the human's ability to maintain and retain knowledge compared to like a computer that could do all of the statistical programming and kind of, um, so I generally am of the opinion that like experts, and this is proven time again, like the consensus of experts in any one field is a worse predictor of outcome and future than the broad general consensus of polled people, and that is what got me into crypto in the first place, right? So uh how do you go broad and make money is a very, very interesting question that I I don't necessarily know the answer to, although you have to have, like, again, just the courage to continue to reinvent yourself and the willingness to not get stuck into kind of any one thing if you don't believe it is like continuing to serve you. Because, you know, all of like the automated things will continue to be automated, and, you know, if you get automated, well, then, like, what do? You know, you have to be creative, you have to continue to grow. You have to, like, get into the zeitgeist of the times, which is, in my opinion, the continued transformation into digital, or like the need to reconcile and deal with like the human spirit and kind of like the collective evolutionary trauma that we are moving and like shifting through.
Amazing. A lot of gems out of this discussion. Next question. If you could meet any three people, living or dead, for a lunch, whom would you want to go with?
Oh my gosh, what a question. Any three people, living or dead, who probably Tesla. I would be down to have a conversation with Tesla. I don't know. Maybe Einstein. I feel like he was fascinating and funny and brilliant. And
Name a living person if you can't think.
a living person. Yeah. Oh, that is such a difficult question for me.
Probably a role model or somebody whom you're very fascinated about, or somebody
Yeah, I
very
mean,
infamous.
I'd like to meet maybe like a like a you know
Somebody
like
very infamous also.
yeah, maybe like Kurt Cobain, maybe somebody who went like full like rock star cycle.
Hmm. Part two of this question. What is one question that you would ask each of them? I mean, it's different question for different person. What would you like to know from them? Tesla.
Yeah, I would have to think like what is your why? You know, what is the
Hmm.
fundamental reason for the exploration or the feeling inside of you that prompted you to get to this place, right? I think it would be an interrogation of core identity,
Hmm.
right? So what were
What?
like the lessons and things that drove you to want to express your life in this way?
Hmm.
I'm,
Uh,
you know, I'm certainly fascinated by it would seem like scientists who are probing the nature of reality, or like rock stars and musicians that probe the importance and expression of individuality, um, and like what that means.
what about Einstein?
Yeah, I mean, Einstein, it's the same. Like, where
The
does
why?
yeah, it's the why. It's where does the creativity around developing like fundamental understanding, like what is the inspiration for that? You know, how are you able to make these presumed like huge fundamental leaps in human understanding, in logic, in like invention and science, in something that is like rules based and mathematical? Where does, like, I don't know if that is like divine spiritual guidance or what that channeling is,
Hmm.
but how through these individual minds are you able to facilitate like exponential leaps in understanding.
I feel for Einstein it wasn't why. Like when you say about why, it is like I want this, that's why I'm doing this. But there is another aspect of observation, right? Of curiosity. Even in Darwin's case, it was the same. He was he was blindly curious. Like for Einstein, what if I travel? What if I sit on a beam of a light and travel? What will I? What will
Mm,
happen then?
right.
Just
Right.
curiosity.
Yeah, like to be so classically trained, right? But also have the ability to think and perceive and question what is outside of those models, and then to be able to
Hmm.
so succinctly like communicate and express and be elegant in like that expression so that other people can begin to understand and
Yeah.
grow and build off that. I think it's a tremendous skill.
Wow. And explain it so simply as well. And this is his quote, which is very famous. If you can't understand it very well, you cannot explain it simply. And he understood it so well that he was able to explain that so simply to everybody.
Yeah.
Uh, Amazing. What question would you ask to Kurt Cobain?
Yeah, I think Kurt Cobain falls in like a line of like it could be an artist like Picasso or just uh again, there is this is less science and more purely creative, right? How do you tap
Hmm.
into yourself to represent and reflect like the voice of a generation or a creation of a new genre of music or a new genre of painting? um I'm so curious if there is like an intentional progression, or if
Hmm.
this is just the culmination and channeling into like individuals where it is almost like outside of themselves, but it really just like fits, and they're like communicators of a larger, broader zeitgeist. So I would be curious across all of them to know where their individuality fits into like this
Hmm.
broader societal expression.
Wow. Next question. If today was the last day to live, like you're going to die in next 24 hours, what would you do?
Uh, I would probably just go outside. I would get, the people that were closest and dearest to me, and I would probably go outside and I would go find a sunny spot and I would probably just lay down in the sun and be, if I knew I was going to die, I don't think I would be rushing really to do anything, because I pretty much try to treat every day as that anyways, right? So I would know that the expression and totality of the life lived was one in which I was preparing for that moment. So then I would probably know that I was ready. And then suddenly I could just be and just kind of be
Hmm.
at peace.
So living every day like in the moment. So it doesn't matter if it is tomorrow's there or not. Beautiful.
I mean, it's again, it's about trying to find and fulfill like the fullest expression of self. So,
Hmm.
and nothing in life is guaranteed. And I think that's also like a great way for people to get to that, is having that thought exercise. Don't think about like the compounding of time and what that's going to mean in 20, 30 years, because none of that is guaranteed, right? What gets you excited to like wake up in the morning and do that thing today? Um,
Hmm.
and don't like try to induce and force suffering upon yourself for the sake of like some goal and that may or may not be promised.
Why do great philosophers throughout history and like yourself have long beards?
um I mean, I think for me this is just an expression of freedom. Yeah, the
Oh,
long
wow.
hair, the long hair, the long beard,
Oh,
right?
you have
Like,
long hair too. Okay.
yeah, it's and then it's also like, I think part of it is also continuing to like reject outside
The
judgment.
notion. Yeah, because you had to have clean shaved face and all that in investment banking.
Right.
So yeah.
That
I
I
see
think
where
it's
you're coming
important
from.
for like to present also, the visual counterpoint so that people know that like you can do it, and it's important for me to feel that like I am free and that I can do it.
Hmm.
You know?
We talked about death. What do you want to be remembered for after death?
Um, that I think kindness is probably number one. I think just like a willingness to help people. I would like people to know and believe that I really cared about the things that I said I cared about, right? That I wasn't like trying to sell them anything, but I was just here trying to express and find like a new way for everybody collectively to be more of themselves and to have like built the tools that encourage people to share and express. And if they don't know their own perhaps core value, to learn from others and connect with others who can help bring them
Hmm.
more clarity and meaning, and
Hmm.
put them on that path. So
Wow.
yeah, kind of just trusting that if you do good and you continue to help others, that the compounding effects of those energetic ripples will be felt and carried for a while.
So you want your life to be an example of that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just I just want to do good, and I want to care about others, and you know that that there that that the culture doesn't have to be capitalism, and that we can do things differently, and we
Hmm.
can find a different way. uh
You know, we should have a separate episode where you can join us, and we can explore what is alternative to capitalism apart from Marxism and other things. That
sure.
would be a very interesting episode.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
My director challenges me that all the time. I don't know. I don't have an alternative. I just know what is happening right now. It doesn't feel good to me. I know it doesn't feel good to a lot of people. It seems to be getting worse. It seems to be like very visibly like harming the planet. And if you carry it to its logical conclusion and end goal, um, doesn't feel like it's going to end very well. So
What are your thoughts on India?
I have
What are the impressions you have? Yeah.
yeah. So I have spent time in Goa, and I have spent time in Kerala, and I thought it was just the most incredible dynamic, one of the most incredible dynamic places that I had ever been. And I found it to be so invigorating and full of life and changing. Um, it was to me, it was just incredibly dynamic and interesting. And I've made an incredible amount of friends. We have an artist on our artist council, Fabin Rashid from India, who in my mind is one of the most like creative, talented, impressive artists that I have ever come across. Um, so I think India has so much like hope and potential for the future, uh and just being like this in I'm pretty excited for India.
And also, you have got many people in your team with Indian origins.
Yeah,
Their name suggests.
Yeah, Shivani's family is Indian. Is there Khalil, who has done some work with us?
So these people are from America, or are they somebody's out of India as well?
So Shivani was born in America. I believe both of her parents were born in India.
At least 3 to 4 names I've read, but that was very interesting to see.
Yeah. I mean, the museum is
Yeah,
in this
yeah,
way definitely deeply connected to India.
and very, very, what do you say? Equality, diverse in as you are explaining. That was a very good thought about the core values of the museum. Okay, what gets you excited about the future?
Um, just that the future is unwritten, and we literally have the ability to sit here and come together and manifest it together.
Mm.
And nothing is guaranteed, and nothing is certain, and that with technology we have the ability to shake and move and reorient and reconfigure. What excited me about the metaverse is that we can go into these digital spaces and we can pioneer new forms of governance, and we can pioneer new forms of economies, and we can very rapidly test things that we're not able to do in physical space. So we can have more experiments, and we can find out what works, and we can bring it back into real life. Um, so I think exponential
Mm.
change speaks to exponential progress and exponential experimentation. And I think over time, all of these experiments will sort themselves into more abundance and better living and less suffering, and a collective elevation of consciousness away from probably more primitive and primal instincts like violence and competition. Um, and just like a deeper understanding in the connectedness of all of us and our like
Mm.
coexistence on this planet.
There's lots of excitement and to see how it unfolds.
Yeah.
Amazing. What is the most priceless gift you have ever received?
Oh wow. The most priceless gift. Uh, I think probably the one that has stayed with me, it was a wristwatch of my father's that he gave to me when I graduated middle school.
Wow.
Yeah.